on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold Voice.
Indeed, it is Desert Radio and the time is 6:12. And I was just saying to John Collin that there's no better way to start your morning than with some smooth, meditative sounds. That's why I chose a slow one, John Collin. That's why I chose a slow one. It was deliberate.
Listen, I'm not mad, dude. Like I said, if it's Frank Sinatra in the morning, then who has the right to complain?
Who can complain?
You know what I mean? Come on, man. Come on.
Well, good morning to you if you're just joining us on Desert Radio 95.3 FM. And please do take note that you can definitely still stream the radio station if you have to get out of your car or leave your radio set. And you can use the link desertradio.fm from any browser. So that is for those streaming us from anywhere else in the world. Now, you can also watch us live on the Namibian's Facebook page. That is at the Namibian on Facebook, so that you can join myself, Arlana, and John Collin here in the studio. And we will open the phone lines a bit later to get your view on our question of the day, which is, have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? Have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? For now, you can take down the number, which is 061 230 558, 061 230 558, and we will be opening the phone lines a little bit later so that you can engage us with that question. Now, it is time for us to get into our political desk, and today we talk about local authorities, mining, education, as well as international politics. Now, to get us started on this morning's political desk, we are joined by Angela NOABES. She is the University of Namibia Job Placement and Special Programs Officer, and we'll be talking a little bit about tertiary education. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How's the morning starting off for you?
I was just saying it's very difficult for me to be early, but you know, it's life.
It's life.
Yeah, sometimes you need to get used to it. Yeah, but the morning is fine, thank you.
The morning is fine. Now, to get us started, Angela, we're going to be talking education for the morning. And, we just want to get some insight into just some of the things happening with the university and, of course, with the students, with everything that happened with the results and all of that. So just a little bit of insight. And I'll start us off with this, right? The University of Namibia just took in a group of new students. How has the orientation been going?
Well, with orientation, we started yesterday with our orientation, where we were giving information more on a school level. When I say school level, it's now the faculties, you know. So we welcome the students in their respective schools, where they are provided with essential information about the university. Yeah, and with first years, it's always difficult. It's transition from a high school to the university, and that is why we have this orientation. Orientation not only to discuss academic information like what to expect in their exams, assessments, but also just to show them around, that universities are different from a classroom set up.
Yes.
And that is why we are having this orientation. And also just to inform our students is we have the academic side. We encourage them to study and also to introduce them to our online learning methods, but also just to tell them that we also have a social side, and we do introduce them to our societies that we have, our sports clubs that we have, so that they can just know that, I can still live my life, I can still enjoy life while I'm studying. So those are the things that we are doing currently during orientation.
Now, the university is going back to face, right?
Yes.
I want to find out, is the university instituting guidelines for COVID-19 now that, the university has reverted back to face-to-face learning? How's that looking like?
Of course, we encourage our students really to vaccinate, and especially those that are in the hostels. We do want them to take care of themselves, because we usually have a quite number of students that we admit. But with COVID regulations, we do have our office of the occupational health side, which ensure that students put on their mask. When you come into the gate, you have to sanitize. We also encourage them when they come to our office to put on masks. If they don't have, for instance, with the orientation, we do give them masks out, just to ensure that we do adhere to our COVID regulations. Yes, but it's quite busy since Monday. It people went back. The students are back.
Yeah, I can
it's
imagine.
face to face. We have missed that vibe also.
Yeah.
It was so quiet for the 2 years. I can say it was very quiet, and students are also very excited to be back. We are also excited to be
To
back.
have them back.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Now, what are some of the programs that the university has laid down for new students to settle in well, aside from the orientation?
The university is having different models. There are models that most of the students take. For instance, if it comes to academically, computer literacy, those basic things, just to ensure that they do understand how to operate on a computer, what is online. We do also assist them whereby we show them what is a portal. I remember 2 years back, I was at the office where we were telling the students, the first years, go on your portal and just go log in, and you will get all your information. But they thought sometimes it's a place where you go, it's an office, and they were asking, which venue is the portal? So those are the important things that we really like to, tutorials, for instance, tutorials on how to go on portal, how to put in your student card, and most important also the library. We really want them to know the library world. If you go in a library, our library, it's like a massive place, and you won't know where to start.
Yeah.
So those are some of the information that we share apart from our orientation with the students.
Now, it's only been a few days of orientation, having the students back, but have they come to you and told you about the new challenges, or the challenges that the new students are facing? Are the challenges you've seen that they're facing? Talk to us a bit about that.
Yes, when you come from high school, just entering the gate of university, there's no teachers, there's no bell that will ring. So those are some of the challenges that students will come and tell us. I don't know who is my teacher. We said we don't have teachers here, we have lecturers. So it's difficult sometimes. It's a challenge for them to adapt. It's a big university. It's students moving around. It's nobody is gonna be behind you to tell you to go to class. So that is why our office is also there from the student affairs, just to make that process smoother and easy for them. Yeah, but it's really a challenge sometimes if they are not orientated to know exactly what is it that they need to do. Venues are far from each other. The timetables, they need to understand how to get their timetables. So currently, those are some of the challenges that they are getting. But we are trying, that is why we are trying with the orientation to ensure that they at least know the essential information that needs to go out. Yeah.
Now, one big stress factor that has occurred in the education sector recently is the whole ordeal that happened with the results and results coming late, students having to rewrite. What accommodations is the university making just for students that are having a little bit of a hard time, adjusting after everything that's happened?
You know, it depends from faculty to faculty, office to office. Yes, as you are saying, results, some of them might have come late due to systems, due to timetables that was late, or the examinations that was maybe changed, the dates were changed. So sometimes students experience that the timetable was on November, but now it's end of November, you know, those type of things. So those are some of the challenges that they are really facing in like summer school, in the promotional the promotional examinations that they are doing. The faculty officers and the different departments are really trying to help them to make that process, because COVID really have make things, you know, it's a new normal way of living. So with that, the university is really trying by all means to ensure that students can have that go through the challenges, and that we can assist them with those challenges that they have.
Yeah. And then when does orientation actually end? And when it does, is the university willing to consider perhaps, you know, extending it? You know, just looking at if the students will be ready or not for the actual varsity experience.
Of course, our orientation program is in two. One is a virtual orientation. So that virtual orientation is throughout the year. So it's online, it's on the website, it will be on the UNAM website, it will be on YouTube, Facebook. So if you have missed out during these 3 days orientation, you can still go back anytime, and then you can just go on our website where there is a freshman orientation, and you will get all the information that you wanted. Yeah, and we also from our office will try to just extract some of the information that we see it's important that time.
Yeah.
For them to go through it again. Yeah, but it's a continuous thing that we are doing. So the orientation doesn't really end on these 3 days that we are having, but it will still continue with that. And our office is also there to assist our students when they come. We provide them with this information.
And go ahead, John.
And lastly, I just wanted to find out. I mean, look, obviously the new students are, you know, more main priority right now. But students essentially aren't anything without the staff, right? How is the staff also, you know, adjusting to going back to face to face and dealing with orientation now? In the way that you used to know it, and then you sort of removed for a while, and now you're back to it again. How is the staff dealing with that?
Yeah, you know, with the COVID, when we were on lockdown, we were working from home. So sometimes you get used to that setup. Now you have to go as a lecturer, stand in front of a big group. So it's challenging. It is a new learning for staff members also. But yes, I think most of us miss the students also, and I think most of the staff are happy to have the students. But we try, if we have bigger groups, to make it smaller. Due to COVID regulations, so that the staff also feel, you know, they are protected, through this class setup that will happen. And I think the online learning did also, that was introduced due to COVID, you know, I think staff can adapt and be flexible on that.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining us this morning, just to give us a little bit of insight as the tertiary academic year kicks off for 2022. They're back to face-to-face learning as we come out of the new normal, which was virtual learning. And we'll be keeping tabs on it just to see how everything is progressing.
Thank you so much.
That was Angela NOABES, the University of Namibia Job Placement and Special Programs Officer. Just speaking to us a little bit this morning about this kickstart of the academic year. The time now is 6:27, and we will be back right after this.
on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold Voice.
This is news on Desert Radio. I'm John Colin Namene. In the headlines, biggest winners and losers in national budget revealed. Michael Amushelelo comes to court barefooted. Police chief comes down on strip show. Overherero Senate to go ahead despite legal threat, and more than 400,000 pupils on feeding scheme. Now for the news in detail. The Urban and Rural Development Ministry has emerged as one of the biggest losers in the national budget tabled last week. The ministry got an allocation that is more than 200 million Namibian dollars lower than the previous year. These details are contained in the 70.7 billion Namibian dollars budget tabled in Parliament by Finance Minister Ipumbushimi. In total, ministries such as the Urban and Rural Development, Justice and Public Enterprises saw their allocations reduced by a combined 500 million Namibian dollars. Other losers include the Namibia Statistics Agency, which has cancelled the population census that was slated for this year. And in a reaction to the budget, Popular Democratic Movement leader Makendi Vanani has challenged Shimi's view that the government spending plans over the next year are youth-centered. In other news, alleged Ponzi scheme kingpin Michael Amushelelo, who came to court barefooted yesterday, says he has sold his shoes to try to pay his legal costs. He says he needs between $500,000 and $1 million Namibian dollars for his trial.
Today I'm barefoot because I've literally started selling everything that I have of value to basically start raising money for my trial as well as for my legal fees. I would need approximately about $500,000 to about $1 million just for the trial of this particular case.
Amushelelo also says he and his co-accused Gregory Kluter have been accused of running a pyramid investment scheme, but the Bank of Namibia never gave them the opportunity to refund their clients.
So I'm accused of running a pyramid scheme. Now usually when one is accused of running a pyramid scheme, what the Bank of Namibia usually does is that it comes to the individual who's accused of running a pyramid scheme. The Banking Act is quite clear. You're given a 14-day notice to refund basically all of your clients. Now, the reason why I'm saying these are bogus charges is because the Bank of Namibia never gave us a chance in order for us to refund all of our clients. In fact, all they did was cook up a bunch of charges. They started with 4 charges. Now they're saying I've got 365 charges. And this was all because I was politically involved. Now, in 2019, I started a political party called Power, which was to challenge the ruling party, SWAPO, because let's face it, this current government is corrupt.
Now, Amushelelo described the case in which he is charged as a well-orchestrated move.
This is a well-orchestrated move, and it's a signal being sent by the current government to say that anyone who dares challenge them, you will be dealt with in whatever form they can find.
He further added that coming to court barefoot was just a start to show that he has been stripped of everything.
The barefoot is to demonstrate to the court that they've stripped me off naked. And the barefoot is just the start. So tomorrow when I come without a shirt to court or without pants, they should realize that they've stripped me of everything I have. And unfortunately, I cannot continue acting like everything is okay when I've been stripped of everything I've worked hard for all my entire life. So unfortunately, I'm tired of pretending that everything is okay while everything is not okay.
In other news, Namibian Police Chief Inspector General Sebastian Detunga has condemned a strip show that took place in Windhoek on Saturday. Detunga says this is a crime that needs immediate action. He said this yesterday in reaction to an event at a Windhoek Club XS Lounge, which hosted a live strip show in which women, allegedly in Namibia on invitation from South Africa, were seen and filmed cavatoring erotically on mattresses and in a baby pool. Detunga, who is currently in Luanda, said he would address the issue when back in the country. He said a police case should be opened following the event. XS Lounge did not respond to the questions, and Warrant Officer Silas Shipandeni had this to say.
We are just sending out a warning there to say that we must totally distance ourselves from engaging in this particular type of indecency. So it's uncalled for in our society, and we will never allow it. As a policing organization, we will never allow it.
Shipandeni explained further.
3 South African citizens who happen to be female by gender, they appear on that particular event. They happen to go through the process of getting invited, and then they appear, they come and perform. So I also asked her now, what was the nature of their performance based on their invitation? What was the nature of this individual's performance? So she confirmed to me that the idea behind that particular event apparently was just to have models or professionals, dancers, that can come and do a jerry wrestling, which could boost their revenue and clientele.
Now, Shipandeni further went deeper.
The girls made an appearance as agreed upon on their invitation, and they also did the jerry wrestling. Now, as they are usually invited, whatever guests, different people, as a marketing strategy, of course, to boost their clientele revenue at large. So while having now that particular wrestling or jerry wrestling, she felt maybe this lady got excited too much, or maybe they got carried away by the crowd, or they were highly intoxicated. That is according to her own observation now, because she could not tell as to how did they start behaving in that manner. So they started apparently undressing themselves, and then immediately now the manager who was on duty, she felt it was uncalled for. So she immediately stopped the music and asked the lady now, why are you guys undressing yourself, or why are you behaving like that? So regardless of the questions, though, that particular manager was on duty, so she decided to shut down the music and close the whole event.
In other local news, the acting Secretary General of the Overhead Traditional Authority Transitional Committee, Nandi Wasora Matheingo, has confirmed that the committee will be pushing ahead with the Senate meeting at Aminus, where it is expected that Mushinde Kashiwa will be confirmed as a new Overhead Paramount Chief. This is despite a splinter group saying it will approach the High Court to challenge the appointment of Kashiwa as Chief Designate. The group, led by Chief Vipurwa Kapuo, last week threatened to approach the courts. Now, they claim that the unfolding drama around the paramount chief position already gave rise to violent altercations and is dividing the Overhead nation. Matheingo said the committee would continue with the Senate meeting in line with the decision taken at a Chiefs Council meeting on the 10th of December. Matheingo had this to say.
They wrote a letter, they gave a timeline to say, do certain things. If you don't do those things by this time, we are going to do A, B, C, and Z. They have written a letter that says we are supposed to do certain things. We are supposed to commit in writing that we are not going to proceed with the Senate.
And lastly, Basic Education Ministry Deputy Executive Director Eda Bon says since the establishment of the government school feeding scheme in 1996, it has expanded to feed more than 400,000 pupils who would otherwise go hungry. The government spends more than 86 million Namibian dollars a year on the procurement of maize blends for the school feeding scheme, but the ministry has introduced a homegrown school feeding program that will stimulate a relationship between local farmers and schools. Bon was speaking at the commemoration of the 7th Africa Day of School Feeding at Ours Primary School in Katutura.
By purchasing food locally, the homegrown school feeding program creates markets, boosts local agriculture, impacts rural transformation, and strengthens local food systems, alleviating poverty and creating empowerment for women and youth through income generation.
She also had this to say.
As we commemorate the Day of School Feeding, ladies and gentlemen, we are being reminded of our obligation to expand the coverage of homegrown school feeding and to reach the most vulnerable learners and communities in our society.
Now that concludes the news on Desert Radio.
Desert News, powered by the Namibian newspaper.
On this Thursday morning here on Breakfast in the Desert Radio 95.3. Now, the time is 7:13, so we're going to get into our press review for the morning, where we'll give you just a quick splash into what is happening in your Namibian daily newspapers. John Collin, what do you have in front of you?
I have the New Era and the Namibian Sun in front of me, but before I get into that, I see there is a comment on Facebook with our colleague Elias Ndianale just posting laughing emoji faces. And I'm very interested, Elias, tell us what is so funny.
We also want to
We
laugh.
really want to know and want to laugh also. So do come back with that comment and let us know. But there is great news on both front pages of the New Era and the Namibian Sun. The New Era led with Namibia roots out hepatitis E, while the Namibian Sun led with 66 deaths later. Hepatitis E is eradicated. Disease for the poor officially over. Now, nearly 5 years after Namibia declared an outbreak of hepatitis E in its informal settlements, the Health Ministry has announced the end of the outbreak, which claimed a total of 66 lives and infected more than 8,000 people. So just for that number in detail was 8,092 total infections, and there were 27 maternal related deaths, and the last death was reported in 2020, and this was as you know, and as the Namibian Sun quoted, disease linked to poor sanitation and quote unquote disease for the poor. So there's good news that we are now free of the hepatitis E outbreak, which I think is thumbs up to the Ministry of Health and, of course, to Namibians in general.
Absolutely. That is very good news to hear. There were also concerns that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, not much attention was being paid to hepatitis. So to hear that
100%.
it's eradicated is indeed very good news.
I love it.
Now, in the Namibian, they're leading with basically an analysis of the national budget that was tabled last week. And they're looking at the winners and losers in this budget, which was youth-centered. And the theme of it was youth-centered. But PDM President McHenry Venani has actually said that the youth are the biggest losers in this budget. Now, it looks like, just a couple of important ministries and sectors have lost out. So the Namibian has a chart here to say that, the Urban and Rural Development Ministry is getting a $243 million cut. Justice is getting a $43 million decrease. The Namibia Statistics Agency has gotten quite a cut, and hence the census that was supposed to take place this year has been postponed. And then with infrastructure, no new infrastructure projects will be undertaken this year. And it just looks like the budget is not quite to everyone's appeasing.
And speaking about the census, the New Era has a story titled "Census Cancellation Could Skew Resource Allocation." So as we know, the cancellation of the 2021 National Population and Housing Census, which was also previously postponed last year and now called off, could have adverse effects on government's planning and resource allocation. So the NSA Statistician General Alexi Mafweni this week announced in a statement that the census was cancelled and quote unquote as it is not provided for in the national budget of 2022-2023 due to financial constraints and other critical national priorities. The New Era has an article on that, and then another article on the front page of the Namibian Sun. Quite a rather unfortunate one, and made rounds on social media. Humiliated Rundu pensioner missed medication, according to the family. So there was a woman from Rundu. She's 60 years old. This is from Rundu's Tumweneni informal settlement. She was seen walking naked in public on Tuesday, and she was accused by some of practicing witchcraft as she suffers from mental illnesses and missed a monthly injection, missed a monthly medicine injection. This was according to her family. So she attracted, a huge crowd of onlookers, some of whom mocked and laughed at her, while others filmed her with their mobile phones. And like I said, this went viral on social media. So videos of her walking naked have gone viral amid accusations that she was practicing witchcraft in a region where such beliefs are commonplace. Now, her family did say that, she missed her medicine and she also missed an appointment that she was supposed to go to her doctor. And the granddaughter actually says that there wasn't anyone that was transport to take her there, and there was no taxi money as well. But I think the comments that flew around social media were quite unfortunate, seeing that this is a mental health issue.
Yeah.
And, this woman is also, an elderly citizen. So to have experienced that must suck, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And with that, we conclude your press review for the morning. Make sure to pick up a copy of The Namibian today so that you can get your full on what we just discussed and a whole lot more. For now, it's time to get into our business and economic news on The Bottom Line.
The Bottom Line, Your business and economic news. Business and economic news.
Here on breakfast in the desert this morning.
That's right. That's
Reminding
right,
me of my
right.
dad, in fact. The
Oh,
time
wow.
the time is 7:32 and you are tuned into breakfast in the desert on Desert Radio 95.3. And if for any reason you have to switch off your stereo or get out of your car, you can still stream the station using the link desertradio.fm from any browser, so you can use it on your phone and listen to us as you go about your morning. Now, we're going to have a discussion with the CEO of the Swakopmund municipality, and he's also served as the CEO of the Tumeb municipality in the past. That is Archie Benjamin, and we have him on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Archie. How are you?
Good morning, Desert Radio. Good morning, listeners. I'm very fine. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. How's the morning starting off?
Now we are here in a very cloudy, misty Swakopmund, and it's just perfect.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Archie, the weather in Windhoek is, we're back to the heat. So are you guys still experiencing rain, or is the rain also over for you guys?
No, we are back to the Swakopmund weather,
Yeah.
which you guys inland were enjoying.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Lovely.
so we are happy.
All right. Well, Archie, we definitely, want to talk to you just about what's going on that side of the country. And to start us off, right, let's talk about, COVID-19 having been a very devastating time, and for the tourism sector especially. And Swakop thrives on tourism. So just tell us how the town is recovering at the moment from the blow that was delivered by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Obviously, you know that Swakopmund is a tourism-based economy. And due to the travel restrictions that we put in place during COVID, not only international travel, but also internally, we had a devastating effect on our economy in terms of people traveling. Unfortunately, we had some of our businesses closed because of that. We have a lot of people who lost their jobs at the time, and unfortunately also we had the loss of life as well. But with the percentage figures going down of COVID infection, and the government initiative to encourage travel and tourism, we've seen an increased number of travelers coming through, especially, of course, from South Africa and the rest of SADC. But we have also seen an increase of Namibians themselves traveling to see their country. And that has greatly improved the economic impetus into the town. So we've been seeing increase in occupancy, leisure activities as well. So we are picking up.
And on the issue of international tourists, actually just tell us, I mean, since, December period is usually the period that everyone goes to Swakop, not only Namibians, but international tourists as well. What are the signs looking like, especially now, coming from December, of international tourists, starting to trickle back into the coastal town after the borders were, I guess, more opened?
What has happened because of the still restricted aviation travel, I think most of the tourists converted to self-drive.
Yeah.
Traveling through South Africa, of course, Zimbabwe, on the way through Namibia. So we have seen an increase of a lot of self-driven tourists coming through the Swakopmund, Henry's Bay, the rest of the Rongo region, just exploring on their own. And then they also have time to spend more time in the country. Unlike they would just flown in 2 days and then flown back. We've seen most of them coming in for booking tour operators for even for more than 2 weeks just to travel and see the rest of the country. Yeah.
And then let's just move a bit away from tourism and just talk Swakopmund in general. We also want to find out how Swakopmund right now, especially the municipalities, tackling the challenges associated with housing and poor sanitation among the residents.
Yeah, maybe it's also important just to give a brief on what we were busy with over the past 2 to 3 years.
Yes,
in terms of long-term planning and long-term sustainability. I know those challenges will always be there with local authorities. But what we have done as Swakopmund is strategically we have completed a 20-year plan, which is a structure plan where we defined the land use of every piece of land within our town boundaries. And we have also incorporated the principle of integrated development to see that the western side of Swakopmund does not outgrow the eastern side. And I think you will understand what I mean.
Yeah.
To see how we can bring the development of the Mondesas and the Tamariskias and the DRCs closer to what is happening on the western side of Swakopmund. What we've also decided is that in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of Swakopmund, we cannot just rely on tourism. Of course, tourism will always be with us, but we've expanded on the aspect of tourism in all its dynamics. Tourism is not just people traveling from Europe coming to Namibia. We have seen an increased interest from SADC, from South America, but we have also initiated a number of activities to ensure that we increase the visibility of Swakopmund in the form of event tourism. We've launched an event tourism program where we are encouraging people to host events in Swakopmund because we have world-class facilities here from sport and leisure and otherwise. But we've also pursued the pillar of tertiary education. Swakopmund, we believe, is the perfect university town. Currently, we have approved 2 tertiary institutions. We are just busy finalizing the paperwork so that we can launch them. And then we've also pursued the principle of urban agriculture. We believe that the people of the Swakopmund is growing, is continuing to grow. We cannot continue to import 60% of our fresh produce from South Africa. We have land available here and technology to produce our own food. We have started a project which assists our community, urban agriculture project, is a signature project. But we have also identified pieces of land around our river and around our sewer plants, which we are demarcating for urban agricultural development. We have also moved to join forces with other partners, such as MTC and the Dome and all the telecom companies, to roll out optic fiber around the city in pursuit of our smart city goals. So we are expanding the base of development. And and currently we are implementing projects in line with those pillars that I just shared with you.
Yeah. Now, speaking to that and the ongoing development that's happening in Swakop, your town has one of the longest housing waiting lists.
Yes.
So speak to us about what the municipality is doing to deal with this.
We have a list of 22,000 people. Obviously, people have applied for years, and because of the Swakopmund is within the Rongo region, which is an industrial region, considering that we are also just close to the the harbor as well. So you have the issue of rural-urban migration. But since 2019, we have been proactive in rolling out a 13-plan approach to housing development. Council has a number of projects already running to deal with housing. We have, for example, Build Together program, where we have completed 70 houses so far. We just recently also completed 32 houses through the Sheikh Dwellers Federation. And then Council has also another project called the 4040 project, where we've completed over 268 houses within the middle to low income category. We've also launched what we call a social housing program, and that is now targeting those people in the DRC who cannot access bank loans, where Council then constructs houses at their affordability level, and then they rent the house for that time period, say 15 to 20 years, depending. And once they pay off the rent of 300 per month over that time period, then the house is transferred. Because you have a large number of people on that list who are unemployed but have income-generating ventures, and they can fund their housing. But what we also done is Council has allocated land to private developers. We have, for example, what we call a Mondesa Heights project just on the eastern side of Mondesa, where we have completed 119 apartments which are now being occupied. 40 houses have been completed. The project is aimed to deliver 250 houses, and they are currently servicing. We have what we call Block 9, just on your way to Hendy's Bay, where Council entered into a joint venture with the developer to develop the land, and then to provide service land to especially professional young people within our mines who cannot access housing in your Mile 4s and Kramersdorp and other high-income areas. There are, at the moment, around about 98 houses completed under that block. But so we also have, just in Madutura, current Council has approved 8 blocks of land of 10 hectares each, which were allocated to developers. The delivery strategy is the Council gives land for free. The developer takes risks in developing the land, putting in all the basic services. And then the repayment method for the developer is to give a number of erven to Council so that we can house our people who are on the list. But then the developer can then sell the rest of the erven to whoever is in need of housing. So it's a combo of strategies that we are developing. We have the issue of the informal settlement, for example, in the DRC, where we, over the past 2 years, we have, in our decongestion strategy, have moved around about 1,700 people to a new area where they have their individual erven. We have joined forces with the Ministry of Lands and Agriculture to give ownership to these people through the flexible land tenure program. And we have already started that process. So with the DRC, the intention is to decongest, because DRC proper, the middle of DRC, which is already serviced, is congested in the sense that you have a number of people who are living on one end. And as we move out people, we are constructing houses for those owners in the DRC proper. So it's a number of activities we are busy with,
Yeah.
just to say the least, yeah.
Now, if you've just tuned in, we are speaking to Archie Benjamin, who is the CEO of the Swakopmund municipality. Archie, if I'm not mistaken, you have been CEO since 2019.
Yes.
Yeah. And look, as a CEO or a head of any institution, really, there is, sort of a 5-year plan of some sort, which is goals and objectives. Talk to us about how your 5-year plan has been rolling out in terms of objectives that you still need to complete, that you still want to complete, and perhaps new ones that you have, put in for the town of Swakopmund.
Luckily, we just recently completed the strategic plan. Because we first had to complete our long-term plan. The strategic plan is for 2022 to 2026. And I think it simply tried to address the issues of efficient and responsive service delivery. It tries to address the issue of long-term financial sustainability. It also tried to address the issue of adequate bulk infrastructure. What has happened over the years is Swakopmund has grown towards the north without really investing into the bulk infrastructure. That's your sewer network, your water network, and also the road networks that will connect your western side to your eastern side of the town as it grows. And those are the key. Of course, we've got other goals in our strategic plan. We have smart city ambitions. We want to turn Swakopmund into a green city. We have already started with a number of things that we are doing. So that's basically what we are trying to do. So by 2026. We want to ensure that Swakopmund is a leading smart city providing excellent services to all.
And with that, how is the town dealing with challenges of unemployment, prevalence of crime, especially as it relates to young people?
Yes, I must agree with you that unemployment is a challenge. You have a lot of young people who are dropping out of school, who are leaving school. You have a lot of young people who have been unemployed for quite a long time. From the municipality side, we have a number of programs where we, for example, through our youth office, have started a database, to establish the number of unemployed people in Swakopmund, especially the youth, so that they can come in and then we know at what level of qualification they are, what are the skills that they have, so that in the future we link them to specific investments or projects that are coming. We are also providing SME training on an annual basis just to equip our young people to start their own businesses. Of course, we are joining forces with the Ministry of Trade and other government agencies to provide those opportunities. But I want to inform you that also Council has also joined forces with the Dome, for example, this year to start a business incubation program where we are taking young people, which we fund, of course, and the Dome then provides the office space, the technology, the knowledge, and the personnel for these young people to start a business over a period of 9 months. It's not like you are going to class or something. You go there, you pitch your idea, they help you to register your business, they help you to create your business, and then register your business, and then you start trading, and then you graduate after 9 months. We have a group of 10 that are graduating now, We've spent around about 500,000 on that program. We hope to expand it in the new budget cycle because that's how we believe we can create businesses, not just businesses in terms of investment coming, but also creating young people creating businesses here. What we've also done briefly is that during the COVID period, we registered around about 3,500 tuck shops and all these little businesses that were operating illegally. Now we are busy assisting them to formalize them. The business registration process in Namibia is a bit cumbersome.
Yeah.
So we assist them to be registered, to trade. To us, they only pay 400 registration fee per annum, but then they can be legitimately start doing their business and grow, and access finance and whatever they want to do. So those are but many of the other initiatives that we are trying to do.
Well,
but with the issue of crime, yes, crime, we are lucky that in the Rongo region, we've already built a relationship with not only with the governor's office, but also with the regional council and the security cluster, where we have platforms where we share challenges, and through organizations such as the tourism forum, where we share strategies as how to deal with crime, and that's how we go about it. It's something that we have organizations such as the neighborhood watches and also volunteer organizations that are also part of this initiative, just to try to curb crime in that regard.
Absolutely. Well, Archie, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and especially on the SME programs for the youth. It really speaks to re-imaging a better future for the youth, as is the plan for the country. That was Archie Benjamin, the CEO of the Swakopmund municipality, just giving us a little bit of an update as to plans for the town and what they are doing currently. The time is 7:55, and you are still tuned into Breakfast in the Desert on Desert Radio 95.3. And just after we give you some Mango Groove, which is coming up next with this one titled Home Talk, we will get into your sports for the morning.
It is Breakfast in the Desert on Desert Radio. 7:59 is the time on the clock. Good morning if you're just tuning in. We are, of course, live on 95.3 FM and desertradio.fm for those who are joining us from anywhere in the world via stream. It is 8 o'clock, means it is time for us to get into your sports news today, and we'll start off with some news across our borders. Now, athletes from Russia and Belarus will be allowed to compete as neutrals at the 2022 Winter Paralympics in Beijing following the invasion of Ukraine. Now, the International Paralympic Committee says the two countries will compete under the Paralympic flag and will not be included in the medal table. The opening ceremony is on Friday, with the competition starting on Saturday, and the International Paralympic Committee President Andrew Parsons said the measures were the harshest possible punishment under its constitution. He said the committee and wider Paralympic movement are greatly concerned by the gross violation of the Olympic truce by the Russian and Belarusian governments by launching a war against Ukraine in the days prior to the Beijing 2022 Paralympic Winter Games. Parsons added that the Paralympic Committee governing body is united in its condemnation of these actions and is in agreement with that they cannot go unnoticed or undressed. Furthermore, Swiss business tycoon Hans-Jörg Wyss is considering buying football club Chelsea from Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich. Wyss has told a Swiss newspaper. He said Abramovich is trying to sell all his villas in England, and he also wants to get rid, this is Abramovich now, get rid of Chelsea quickly. This is according to the newspaper, and the newspaper says Wyss quoted this. Wyss also said he, along with three other people, had been approached to make an offer to buy buy Chelsea from Abramovich, and they said he would have to wait 4 or 5 days to see how things play out. Now, this news did break out on social media also, and I've seen Chelsea players, a bit stuck in between opinions about this particular issue. And in boxing news, Tyson Fury says he will retire after next month's defense of his WBC boxing title against fellow British heavyweight Dillian White in London. Now, Fury says he has nothing more to prove. The unbeaten two-time world champion was expected to face the winner of Anthony Joshua's rematch with Oleksandr Usyk, the holder of the WBA, IFB, and WBO belts, in a unification bout, should he beat White. But after a news conference on Tuesday to promote the fight on 23rd April at Wembley Stadium, Fury said he would be, quote-unquote, fully retired after the fight. He also accused White of showing the white flag at the press conference after the challenger failed to attend the event. And then in just some rugby news, the Sharks rugby team on Wednesday named an experienced side for the Currie Cup visit to the Pumas on Friday evening. With South Africa's United Rugby Championship teams having a break this weekend, the opportunity arises for extra game time in the Currie Cup, and the Sharks coach is able to include a number of seasoned stars in his team. With the 3 wins from 3 and 14 out of a maximum of 15 points, the Sharks are top of the table and will want to continue their rich vein of form. Now, that does conclude our sports news on Desert Radio today, but we also do have an interview for you just to talk a bit of local cricket. Of course, this morning we are joined by Michael Dupriya. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it?
I'm well, and yourself?
Good. Now, Michael is, of course, a wicketkeeper at Wanderers, who are playing in the league finals this weekend against Windhoek High School Old Boys, rather. Michael, how excited are you for the final this weekend?
Yes, extremely excited. It's been a tough season.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't split our 2 teams, and I think the final is going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah. Now, talk to us just a bit to what you have learned this season. What challenges you guys have experienced, perhaps. I mean, it's been a very long season, but clearly on your side, it's been a good one. Just talk to us a bit on how you'd sum up the season for yourself.
This season has been a bit indifferent, with our team changing regularly and the rain influencing a lot of the game.
Yeah.
So it's been a tough season, but we have a good team, and I think we'll manage to come up number 1 in the final.
I love the confidence. Now, I did manage to watch y'all's game against United on Saturday, and Wanderers was batting quite good. Are there perhaps any other elements in the team that you are proud of, perhaps besides the batting?
I'm very proud of the boys, especially because of last season. A day or 2 before, we just had a massive blow in losing our captain.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the boys showed a lot of pride and effort by just the experienced guys showing up, our national team players and our top 3 batters being clinical in their performances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps any challenges that you saw the boys should work on from Saturday's match, but also I guess through the season? Are there any elements that you guys are particularly, going to work on hard leading up to Saturday's final?
We'll definitely concentrate a bit more on our fielding.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be a bit more clinical on that aspect of the game.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we should just stick to the basics, and hopefully that'll bring us out on top.
Yeah. Now, we also saw the Windhoek All Boys take on CCD on Sunday, and they won that game. Have you guys been looking at the various All Boys team, to find out where their strength lies, what you guys can possibly do, in regards to that?
Yeah, of course. VIS All Boys are they're a very big and good team.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a few dangerous players. They're also loaded with experience, and it's going to be a very exciting final.
Yeah. And then, bar the final, I guess after Saturday, what else are we looking forward to for the rest of 2022?
we've got the franchise cricket coming in middle of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also got the national team playing on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so other than that, I'm not quite sure what other fixtures there are, but there's definitely a lot of games to be played.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Wishing you guys all the best on Saturday. I will definitely be there to see a good cricket game. And yeah, man, all the best.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Right, there was, of course, wicketkeeper from Wanderers who will be playing, Michael Dupria rather, who will be playing against Windhoek All Boys in this weekend's 50-over league final. It's set to be a great one. I did watch them play last week at Wanderers, and I watched a few highlights of the Windhoek All Boys also against CCD, so that should be a very, 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 very great one. We will, of course, have our veteran sports journalist Shifeni Nicodemus in tomorrow to just give us a roundup of what else we can expect in the weekend or from the weekend regarding sports from Friday to Saturday. 8:07 is the time on the clock. You are still tuning to Breakfast in the Desert. We're having a good show, man, and I hope you're having a good morning by virtue of that. We hope you're smiling, that you are at work, that you have woken up well, and do not forget you can tune in on our Facebook platform to just say hi, to also answer our question, which is, have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? Have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? Now, you can answer that on our Facebook platform. You can also call us at 061 230 558. That's 061 230 558, and just give us a response to that question. Do not touch that dial. We will be back with more Breakfast in the Desert after this. Windhoek, Okanja and Rebo, 95.3 FM is the frequency you can catch us on. But also, if you are leaving your radio set, desertradio.fm is where you can catch us online. Otherwise, we are live on our Facebook platform at The Namibian, where we are running a question. That question being, have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? Have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? You can, of course, tell us what you think about that on our Facebook platform. Otherwise, we will be opening up the phone lines a bit later to get your views on this question at 061 230 558, 061 230 558. Now, to speak about this question in particular, we are joined by exploration geophysicist Fernando Sylvester. He's also the chief geoscience consultant for Nautilus Mining and Energy, and we will engage him just a bit to explain about the recent oil find that has been declared in Namibia. And of course, this is just to help all Namibians and ourselves understand the process. Good morning, Fernando.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, and you?
Very well, thanks.
The morning is going great?
Yes, so far.
Yeah?
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Yes. I don't want to jinx it, so yeah.
Now, listen, Fernando, everyone has been asking what this means, how this works, all of that, right? Just tell us a bit, I guess in layman's terms also, just for everyone in Namibia to understand. What does the discovery of oil in Namibia actually mean?
Okay, thanks. So it's a very good question, also a very broad question.
Yeah.
But essentially, for oil and gas development, sort of depending on the scale, it can lead to a transformation of a country's, economy. And one of the ways is delivering high-skilled jobs, so you get more high-skilled employment in the industry.
Yeah.
You get trickle-down employment as well in the form of like services that feed into the industry, logistical side and that. And that all is good and well, but it has to come from sort of, if there's the correct focus put on local content and the supply chain. So in essence, so like oil is a good resource, but for us here being frontier area, frontier meaning there's not a lot of infrastructure that aids oil and gas development, it has significant impacts, positive impacts. Significant positive impacts.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
need to focus on the positive side.
Of course.
For the local economy, it's often beneficial though for the host countries, which we stand in line to be, to export the oil so that we can generate the most revenue from it, and then we then use sort of the byproducts that we can feed into the energy sector.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think a term that we've been hearing a lot as, this news is coming out and people are explaining what they're looking for and what they're finding is we hear this thing about light oil. Now, me as a person, I don't know what light oil is. What does it mean? What is it?
Yeah.
Just talk to us a bit about that.
Okay, cool. So let's start with what's oil.
Yes,
let's
then
start
we
there.
break
And then
it
we
down.
build.
Yeah.
So essentially oil is formed over millions of years, right? And then what happens is you get plant and animal material that has sort of decomposed somewhere in the Jurassic. Not that long ago, about 100 million years ago.
Yeah, it's not that far.
long.
Yeah, I know,
exactly.
it's about 2 weeks in comparison.
Yeah.
No, but, and then these decomposed, they get buried deep within the Earth's crust, within the Earth's upper crust. They undergo like pressure changes, temperature increases, and then what happens is that expels oil. Now, you get two different types. Well, you get many different types of oil, but generally speaking, you get a light oil and you get a heavy oil. There is a standard that's being used by the American Petroleum Institute, so it's called API. So how we measure the lightness of an oil would be its API gravity. So a light oil would have an API gravity anywhere between 37 degrees and 42 degrees.
Okay.
By meaning, or what I mean with light oil is, imagine, I don't know, I want to use something in the kitchen, busy cooking.
Yeah.
You take cooking oil.
Yeah.
That's light oil.
Okay.
Okay.
And then if you think of a heavier oil, it has a higher viscosity. So meaning, think of shampoo flowing
All right.
out of a bottle. So that flows slower and
It's
that-
thick.
Thicker.
Yeah.
it's thicker. So that would be considered a heavier oil.
Okay.
And then that's pretty much it. And how the API gravity sort of measurement works is they measure all oils, because we know oil is less dense than water, so it sort of floats above the water. But how much less dense is it?
Okay.
So they measure the oil specific or the gravity, and then they compare that to just plain water.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the degrees. So like 37 to 42 is a very light oil. Lower than that would be a heavier oil.
Oh.
And then speaking to those measurements, right, that dictates the viability of the oil and what it can be used for and what it means, right? So first of all, how does one determine the viability of the oil? And then second to that, how do drillers, or like how long would it take for a driller to ascertain the commercial viability of their oil find?
Brilliant question. Okay,
He got excited about that one. I love it.
let's unpack this. So I think to explain this, what I'll try and do is explain just the basic oil life cycle.
Okay.
So there's 5 steps. Yeah. Initially, there's the exploration phase. So that can take anywhere from 2 to 10 years.
Okay.
So what happens is companies come in, they assess data that's freely available, seismic data. And then they apply for acreage. It's extremely well regulated, especially in Namibia. What we have here is an open licensing system, meaning both local and international companies can apply for oil blocks, open oil blocks, any time of the year. Just a shameless plug. So if you want to apply for oil blocks, come speak to us at the ministry, please.
Yeah.
And then. So your exploration and your appraisal phase, which is where these companies are now currently in the Orange Basin. So they drill the initial well. Now for them to assess how big the reservoir is, which is sort of the container in which the oil is kept, they will then do appraisal wells. So your first phase is exploration, like I said. That then goes through to the appraisal, where Shell is currently. So, you know, the announcement came from Shell first at the Graph 1 discovery that they made a discovery of light oil in 2 reservoir sections.
Okay.
meaning there's two containers that they intersected with the same borehole.
Okay.
Just fun fact, once you get down to sort of the reservoir level, the diameter of the borehole is only 8.5 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very small.
Yeah, that's tiny.
yeah, it's very so impact in that is minimal. It's almost none.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that is then followed by the development phase. So when they appraise, they then look at how big this reservoir is. Is it viable, economically viable to develop it? Yeah. And then on your development phase, that can take anywhere from 3 to 10 years. When was it? On the weekend, I had a chat with a mate of mine. He's like, so what does this mean for us? I was like, well, it means a lot of things. Like I said earlier, it can really transform our economy, right? And with the people in the ministry at the helm right now, I think it will transform our economy. It will trickle down. I don't want to use the word trickle because that sort of has a negative, small connotation to it. It's not trickle. It's going to really affect all of us in a very good, big, and positive way. Sorry.
No,
That's
you're
okay.
fine.
Sorry, I'm just really excited
Yeah.
about this stuff. And then that goes into the development phase.
Okay.
So earlier I mentioned that we are frontier area, so there's no infrastructure offshore. Unlike countries like Angola, just to the north of us, Gabon, further north, Ghana, there's good infrastructure, meaning from discovery to development to production of first oil, the timelines are much more compressed.
Okay.
In our area, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no infrastructure close by, meaning they'll have to build and install infrastructure.
Okay.
And part of that is either renting what's called an FPSO, which is a floating production storage offshore vessel, or building one.
Okay.
Which takes a very long time.
Yeah.
So now, in general, we're looking at about 5 to 7 years from initial discovery, appraisal, development, production.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then afterwards, so when we hit production, depending on how big the reservoir was, how big the find is, how viable, to answer your question with your words, how viable the discovery was, it can take anywhere 20 to 50 years for it to produce. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a big find. Actually, the Orange Basin, where these wells were drilled, is considered the last like super basins where you can have the last frontier areas where you can still have very big reservoir bodies. Yeah.
Now, we'll go back to the issue of drilling later. I'm just, as you are also excited now, because I've learned of light oil. So I really want to understand this. Is light oil easier to extract, or is it like, is it cheaper to get to, like the commercial chain as opposed to heavy oil?
Yes. Okay. So, in a perfect world, what you want, so the oils would be rated on how light they are and how sweet they are.
Okay.
So the light oil would be the ones with a specific gravity between 37 degrees to 42 degrees.
Yeah.
And then also you get the sour content. So whether a crude is sweet or sour is dependent on the sulfur content in that crude.
Okay.
So it varies from sort of country to country, but essentially in a nutshell, a sweet crude is considered a crude with a sulfur content of less than 0.5 degrees, or 0.5%, apologies. And a sour crude is one with a sulfur content of more than 0.5%. Now this can change to 1%. So 1 to 2%, that would be considered sour. Under 1%, that would be considered sweet.
Okay.
Where the difference comes in, it's easier to sort of during refinement.
Yeah.
It's easier to refine for sweet crude than what it is for sour crude, because of the extra steps needed to remove the sulfur from the crude to essentially make it sweet again. So where we want to be ideally is a light crude with a sulfur content of less than 1%.
Yeah.
Well, now we're still waiting on feedback from the oil companies that we're drilling, so we don't know the sweetness content just yet.
So essentially, it's you are at more advantage of finding light oil than heavy or dense oil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. sorry, if that was your question, then yes. That's
All
the
right.
answer.
Definitely. Now, just walk us through the process of drilling, because I think currently with all the different companies that are doing their explorations, there isn't quite an understanding of what it means to drill. A lot of people think that when you're drilling, you're actually extracting oil. So just talk us through, like, what is drilling and what it involves until the stage where the oil is discovered.
Brilliant. Before I talk about drilling, let's talk about seismic surveys.
Yes,
Otherwise, we don't know
Yes.
where we should drill, right? So in the industry, we use seismic surveys to give us an indication. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
To give us an indication of what's happening within the subsurface.
Okay.
Let's say the upper few kilometers of the upper crust is riddled with different layers of rock types. So imagine, I'm going to try and equate it to a real world example again. Going to the doctor to get a scan of a baby, if you've been blessed, with child. So then what happens is the doctor would then use that little sonogram thing, and then he or she would send out sound waves that travels through the mom's tummy and then reflects off the baby's body. Similar concept is applied, but on a much larger scale in seismic surveys.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle, just different tools, whether on land or whether within the ocean. So what happens is sound waves are sent from what's called geophones, and these from the sources, and these are picked up by the geophones. So when they go down into the water column, they go through and penetrate into the Earth's crust. Now, because different rock types are made up of different materials, they'll obviously have different densities, different velocity properties. So they'll reflect the sound waves back at different times. This is then recorded in a supercomputer. A lot of companies do it. There's service companies within the industry like PGS, which you might have heard of, TGS, who has a lot of seismic data offshore our waters. And then these companies then process this data and send it to someone like me, who will sit and look at these squiggles, because that's what they are.
Squiggles. That's a nice word.
Yeah. If you Google an image or seismic image, that's essentially what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then from our training, we then know what to look for.
Okay.
But in a nutshell, anything that looks out of place is usually good news.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you know what it's supposed to look like, you know what a mountain's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
It's the same it's in subsurface as well.
I'm looking at the seismic images here, and he's right. It's actually just squiggles. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So then, sorry to break you.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
So then, once you have your seismic image and you've mapped it, so this is now within the exploration phase.
Yeah.
This can take, the process of 2 to 10 years for you to high grade certain areas, go back to certain areas, and then decide on a drilling location. When you start drilling is when you get, depending on your water depth, either you get a jackup rig, you get a semi-submersible, you get a drill ship. So the latest wells that's been drilled here, let's start with the Cormorant 1 well. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so the Cormorant 1 well that was drilled in 2017, that was a drill ship. The Graph 1 well that was drilled now, that started drilling last year and finished this year, that was drilled with a drill ship, and also the Total well, the Venus 1X well, that was also drilled with a drill ship. Essentially, you go down the water column, you sit on the sea floor, and you start drilling. So you start wide, about 38 inches. So that's essentially the biggest that it gets, and that's called jetting, where they just use jets of water just to get like a foothold from which to drill. Yeah. This is on the sea floor. Then as you're drilling, you go through these rock types, and as you get deeper, you need to they call it control the well. You need to go smaller with your diameters. That's why you start with about 42 inches, and you end with about 8.5 inches.
Wow. Okay.
It could be even thinner if you go deeper still, like 7 inches, and then you get into liner territory. But essentially, once you've drilled, there's no guarantee that you found oil.
Yes. Yeah.
So drilling does not equate to finding oil. In the industry, and this is, so we don't quote your chance of failure in our estimations. We quote your chance of success. So
Okay.
you say, this well has a 20% chance of success.
Okay.
Said the other way, it has an 80% chance of failure.
Of course, yeah.
So you get companies that really, they commit millions of US dollars. The latest wells, I think they were running about $80 million each. Multiply that by 16 and then
Yo, that's a lot of money.
you
Yeah.
get a
Yeah,
handsome
it's a
sum
lot.
for our
That's
currency.
a lot,
Yeah.
So, and then in most cases, it fails. And then you pack up, you take your new data point that you have, and you start over.
Sure.
And you go again. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
and go for it. Go after it again, yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. And then, I mean, okay. So drilling. Okay, we've established drilling does not mean discovery.
Yeah.
That's first of all.
Yeah.
And you know, I still want to understand, right? Like when you're drilling, say you find oil.
Yes.
What happens after that?
Okay, so then once you found the oil, so I'm going to talk about it in day time frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's say month time frame.
Okay.
So
Okay.
earlier I mentioned that it's highly regulated. So once a discovery is made, so you usually see this on your. I promised myself I'm not going to use industry terms. And on what we call logs, and that tells us that something is out of the ordinary, which is usually a good thing.
Okay.
And then you'll go back in. You will take what's called sidewall cores. So you take little rock samples from the actual reservoir, the container that I explained earlier, from the container to try and see what's in there. You send those off for analysis, but before that gets sent off, so that would be sort of your day time frame. Your week time frame, then from the rig, they will make contact with the company. The company will then make contact with the regulator and request for permits to export these samples to wherever their sort of laboratory is. So now it tends to sit in the UK. It's a good laboratory, and also in southern US.
Okay.
That's where they send the samples. Once they can then sort of determine the viability, so what are we working with? Are we working with gas? Are we working with oil? If oil, are we working with heavier oil or lighter oil?
Yeah.
Also, then they take fluid samples and they also send that off for analysis. So once the discovery is made, or once you intersect,
Sorry, Fernando. How long does that process usually take? The analysis process.
that can take anywhere from once it's delivered at the laboratory, 24 hours to about 5 days, because it's hot shot. So hot shot means I need this ASAP. I need this quick, so that I can make a decision financially, usually financially driven. Because each day you are on the rig, you pay rental for that rig, and that can spread anywhere from about $400,000 US to $1 million US.
Sure.
So that's just for the rental of the rig. Then you have to pay for the services on that rig. So a good number to use would be to double your rental to try and get your daily rate, your daily average rate.
So many crazy figures, eh?
Honestly.
Yo, man.
It's you initially you wrap your head around it, but then it becomes okay.
Yeah.
It's just a few zeros, nothing serious.
Just a few
It's
zeros.
not too hectic, eh?
Whoa.
Jokes.
No, honestly.
Yeah, but as you were.
Exactly. Then that comes back. So then once the analysis is done and they've now determined, the teams on the ground, they've determined that yes, it is a hydrocarbon, which is a collective term that we use in the industry for oils and gas. So it is a hydrocarbon. They know what phase the hydrocarbon is, liquid, oil. Then from there, they'll usually make the announcement, and then they'll then sort of go on and drill the appraisal well. So the appraisal well, like I mentioned earlier, is to try and test the extent of your reservoir. Okay, so now we found it. Second question, how big is it? Once they've discovered how big it is, then the decision can be made. Do we extract, or is it too small? So a lot of factors come into play there. You know, the depth of the water, again, how isolated you are from facilities. So all of those things so that's what we're waiting for now from Shell and the JV partners, and then also Total and their JV partners.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've seen these things, and they are massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll have to see what the analysis says.
Yeah.
And then for me, that begs the question, right? Like, what then distinguishes a genuine find rather than, let's say, instances where oil companies drill to play the market and increase their share prices?
Oh, very good question. So, a genuine find would be, so everything is a genuine find, but a lot of the times it is hyped up. Yes. So, I'll use an example. A genuine find would have been in 2013 in the Walvis Basin, where, look, before all of this was discovered, the sort of general consensus within the industry was always, it's very difficult to explore here. So in the industry, we use the term play. It's very difficult to play in Namibian waters because the geology is difficult.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't lend itself to sort of the oil industry because it's very hard. But it was very good news when the announcement was made in 2013 that they discovered oil within this this layer in the subsurface. So that rejuvenated, that sort of realigned a lot of companies to come back in and invest in Namibia. Since then, there's been a new sort of call for companies to come in, to play in our waters, and then to try and find. But a lot of the time it's been unsuccessful. I remind you again that 20% chance of success is actually an 80% chance of failure. And a lot of guys drill on a 10% chance of success.
Wow. That's
That's
crazy.
a big gamble.
Right?
That's 90% certain you're not going to make this, bro.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a big thing. And then from there, when companies sort of announce that they've made a discovery, what happens afterwards? So I can't obviously speak for them and for the finance guys, but what happens afterwards? The markets react.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So so let's say, for example, sort of the major players within the industry, especially offshore our waters, would be your international oil companies. So your big, the Shells, the Exxon Mobils, and the Totals who've been playing here. Then you get your NOCs, your national oil companies, which is Namco, you know, locally in Mexico it's Pemex, and like companies like that. But then you also get independents.
Okay.
So independents would only be exploration companies. They wouldn't have a hand in sort of the midstream and the downstream. It's only upstream. So that's where we are playing. These guys would come in a lot of the times with let's say the idea to explore, but if it becomes not viable for them to do that, then they'll try and offset some of their risk by letting go of some of the acreage and selling it to another company.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what happened with sort of the companies that have been here in the past. They come in, high hopes, come and they actually play, and they see after 2, 3, 4 years, this is very, very difficult, and they just don't have the pockets, the depth of the pockets to try and explore for this resource, because it's just too difficult to even put the well in the ground in the first place. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Now I'm interested because you said, look, we infrastructure-wise, we relatively not, as blessed as other countries, right?
Yeah, but they weren't either before they made the discovery.
Sure.
True.
They weren't either.
I
So,
guess, yeah. So in the Namibian case, how many years are we looking at just in terms of infrastructure development and all of that in order to be able to, extract the oil for commercial purposes?
So a good time frame to use would be anywhere from 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, because it's isolated. What will most likely happen is, you'll get a subsea installation where you'll sort of combine all of, if it does get to that phase, obviously after your appraisal and they see it is economically viable, they'll go back in, they'll drill a number of producing wells to extract, but they'll also drill a number of injecting wells. So where they inject either water or the gas that's produced, the associated gas, that's produced with the oil, to create what's called an artificial lift. So to push the oil into the producing wells. And then that goes into a subsea installation, and then all of that piping, it actually looks insane. It looks like something from a sci-fi movie.
Wow.
And then you get all of these pipes go into what's called the FPSO. And this FPSO usually has a turret somewhere on the FPSO, so that the boat can move, with the currents of the water, but the turret remains dead still.
Okay.
And then from there, there's a refinery on the vessel. So they refine, and they depending on the crude, they can make it sweeter. Depending on how much associated gas is there, they separate the gas from the liquid oil fraction. And then from there, tankers would come, they would moor next to it, fill up, and off they go into the market.
Wow, this is an interesting
This
process.
is so interesting.
Man.
It's like there's so much I don't know,
Right.
so I'm just sitting here like inquisitive, and I kind of low-key want to be a geophysicist. It sounds so interesting.
Now, listen, we have been hearing of, oil discovery for the past, few weeks.
Yeah.
But explain to our listeners out there, where exactly has this finding taken place?
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So essentially, think southern parts of the Namibian waters.
Okay.
So just north of South Africa.
Okay.
So our offshore areas, sort of, if you consider geologically, is divided into sub-basins.
Okay.
So if I start from south to north, in the southern part you have the Orange Basin, Orange River,
Yeah.
big Orange Basin. And then just north of that you have the Lüderitz Basin, again, because proximity to Lüderitz. And then north of that, the Walvis Basin. So
Yeah, okay.
It's very easy to sort of remember where they are. And then what you get what we call the Walvis Ridge. And then north of that you have the Namib Basin. So the Namib Basin we share with Angola, and the Orange Basin we share with South Africa.
Right.
These finds were made in the Orange Basin.
Okay.
The Shell well was drilled 2,000 in 2,000 meters of water depth. So that's 2 kilometers of water depth. So
Okay.
it's very, very deep, ultra deep water. The Total well was drilled in 3 kilometers of water. So a massive water column. And where they are situated, it's about 250 kilometers offshore.
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, right? Now with the Orange Basin, because we share it with South Africa, I don't know how water things work and water
Territories and all
like
of
territories
that,
and
yeah.
all of that. But they can't claim a stake on that find.
Oh, no, not this one, because the entire reservoir is fully and truly within Namibian waters.
Okay,
So now
okay.
how the sort of the borders work offshore is they'll take the last point between the two countries, and in our case, in the south, would be the Orange River. Then they'll take the point where those countries meet on land, and they'll draw a line perpendicular to that.
Okay.
And that carries offshore for, I think, 200 nautical miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
To include the EEZ of both of these
Okay.
of the countries. And these finds were in Namibian waters.
Okay.
If it were to straddle the border, then the percentage of the reservoir which is in South Africa would go to them, and the percentage.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's all very fair.
Yeah, it makes it very fair.
Yeah,
it's
of
very
course.
fair. There's
Yeah.
no funny business, and because like I said, it's heavily regulated.
Yeah.
So that's in our case with these fines, it's both of the fines are within Namibian waters.
That's good to hear.
Amazing. Well, Fernando, you just gave us a wealth of knowledge.
No, really.
So thank you for that, and just clearing up some of the understanding of the terms in terms of seismic drilling, discovery, and just the processes. Because I think there's a lot of confusion with these terms, and we don't understand what's happening. We just hear oil, and then it's a whole hullabaloo.
I'm going to go show off now with the knowledge that I
Oh,
learned.
girl,
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Yes.
show off, yeah.
Gonna sound smart and things.
Exactly.
But Fernando, thank you so much for joining joining us in studio today. It really has been very informative. And of course, we'll be keeping up with, what's going on as information comes out. And perhaps we'll have you back once, things move and we need to understand again.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you so much, guys. I really had a lot of fun. I was telling my wife earlier, I was like, I'm so nervous. But you guys made it so easy. Like, I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
No, that's awesome. And that was Fernando Sylvestor, an exploration geophysicist. Just, giving us some insight as to some of our oil discoveries and where they are and what it means. The time is 7:49 and you're still tuned in to Breakfast
8:49.
8:49. Even my eyesight is shot right now. I can't really see, but look at that. That means we're almost at the end of the show.
Almost at the end. We're almost moving, dude.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's about that time.
It's about that time. But before we do that, we did say we will open up the lines and allow you to give us a call, which we're going to do. And just tune in if you are listening on the frequency that is 95.3. You can also tune in on Facebook where we are still live, and you can engage us on our question of the day, which is: have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse? And I'm going to give us a song so that you have some time to put this number in your phone and give us a call. The number is 061 230 558. 061 230-558. Engage us with your thoughts on that question. But for now, here's some Black Coffee and David Guetta with this one called Drive. Because your response was like this. You were like, boo.
Girl, really?
Oh, man. But I think I was just having so much fun listening to Fernando.
Yeah, well, that's great, man.
We were just speaking to a geophysicist, Fernando Sylvestor, who is the principal geoscience consultant at Nautilus Mining and Energy. And he was really just talking us through the process of looking for oil, exploring for oil, drilling for oil, analyzing the oil. Everything that happens before it goes to production. And John Colin and I were just talking about the fact that even with all the exploration that's happening right now, if anything is to come out of it, we will only see the fruition of that in, what did he say, 20 to 50 years?
Yeah, because already when he spoke about the infrastructure which we don't have that has to be built, that takes 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So now bar that, all the other processes that he was explaining take, like you said, 20 to 50 years.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I guess only our generations will benefit from the actual commercial viability of it.
Yeah.
And we are just seeing it in process.
Exactly.
Basically.
Which is madness. But as he also said, it could be such a good thing for an economy if, following due process and if the right decisions are made.
Exactly.
And that speaks to our question of the day as well, which has been, where's our question now? I'm so
Our
lost.
question has been, have African countries which discovered oil reserves derived benefits from this, or did they ultimately experience a resource curse?
Yeah, and I think this chat has been ongoing since, the news has been happening about all the different companies coming in to explore for oil, because we have seen what has happened in other countries, in the Nigerias and things like that.
People are scared, and
People
rightfully
are scared.
so.
Yeah. But we will see. Our generation will see what happens.
Dude, my fingers are crossed, and after the conversation with Fernando, I have nothing but hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if we have people like that that can speak honestly and openly and transparently on these matters, then I think we are in rather good hands.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah,
but only the future will tell.
Exactly.
But with that, John Colin and I do have to say goodbye. But don't go anywhere, because there's a lot more coming up for you today on Desert Radio. And as we love to do, we will leave you with good music, and there will be good music playing all throughout the day. But for now, it's goodbye from us, and we will see you same place, same time. That is 6 to 9 right here on 95.3 tomorrow morning. And I'm going to leave you with Love Yours by J. Cole.
On 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert